दोस्तों इस क्लास में आपको डिक्टेशन दूंगा मैं 100 WPM पर 600 वर्ड्स की डिक्टेशन है, आपको डिक्टेशन में प्रोवाइड कर रहा हूं। बी रेडी फॉर इट।
The West Bengal Restoration of Alienated Land Act 1973 contemplates, in substance, return of land to a small landholder in a situation such a landholder conveys the same to raise funds to tide over financially distressed condition. For restoration of the conveyed land, the concerned landholder is required to make an application to the authority prescribed under the said statute. We shall refer to that statute henceforth as the 1973 Act. This legislation lays down certain parameters within which a landholder ought to come to invoke the provisions relating to restoration of the land already conveyed by him. The nature of land to which the said Act applies is defined in Section 2 of 1973 Act. Under the said provision, land means agricultural land and includes homestead, tank, well and water channel. To be eligible for the protective umbrella of this statute, the aggregate holding of the transferor cannot exceed 2 hectares. The 1973 Act, as originally framed, applied to any transfer made by a landholder in distress or in need of money for the maintenance of himself and his family, or for meeting the cost of his cultivation. There has been subsequent amendment to the Act by which the words in distress or has been omitted. In this appeal, we are concerned with a deed of conveyance executed on 26th April 1968. The transferors of the land forming subject matter of that deed applied for restoration thereof on 9th August 1974. The land forming the subject of the sale transaction included parts of a pond and garden. In the deed itself, it has been recorded that the first vendor was effecting transfer for buying other property, whereas the second vendor wanted the sale proceeds to be applied for repaying loan obtained for marriage of her sister. The third vendor also, representing her 2 minor sons and daughter, declared in the deed that the sale was being effected for meeting the educational costs of her 2 minor sons and also for repaying loans obtained for marriage of her daughter. It has been urged on behalf of the appellants that simultaneous with the deed of conveyance, another agreement of reconveyance of the land was also executed by and between the same set of parties. The time period by when the agreement was to be executed, as specified in that agreement itself, was broadly 2 years. The transferors applied for restoration of the subject property on 9th August 1974 before the special officer having jurisdiction over the subject land. It was urged before the special officer that the subject land was sold in distress and the deed of conveyance was coupled with a reconveyance agreement. Before the set of proceedings giving rise to this appeal had originated, there was an earlier round. The proceedings in the earlier round had also reached the High Court at Calcutta in its constitutional writ jurisdiction. The original transferors were the petitioners before the High Court, as their application for restoration of land stood rejected by the special officer as also by the appellate authority. By a judgment, a single judge of the High Court had set aside the two orders passed by the statutory fora under the 1973 Act, and the matter was remanded to the special officer. Hearing the matter on remand, the special officer sustained the application for restoration by an order. Corollary directions were passed for refund of the consideration money and interest to the purchaser. The computation of the sum to be paid to the purchaser was specified in the order of the special officer. The latter authority found the application for restoration to be in order on technical points. दोस्तों इसी के साथ ये डिक्टेशन फिनिश होती है। उम्मीद है मुझे कि आप लोगों ने इसे अच्छे से लिखा होगा। एक खास बात इसमें जो मेरे को आपको बतानी है वो ये है कि इसमें एक वर्ड आया है कैलकाटा, तो आपको ये ध्यान देना है कि वो कोलकाता बोला जा रहा है या कैलकाटा बोला जा रहा है, क्योंकि अगर कोलकाता बोला जा रहा होगा तो आपको उसकी स्पेलिंग कोलकाता के हिसाब से लिखनी होगी, ठीक है, और कैलकाटा बोला जाएगा तो आपको कैलकाटा के हिसाब से लिखनी है। तो ऐसा आपको अपने हिसाब से दिमाग नहीं लगाना कि कैलकाटा बोला है तो स्पेलिंग कोलकाता वाली ही होगी, ठीक है, तो ये आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा। इसकी 120 WPM की डिक्टेशन आपको पता ही है कि कहाँ पर मिलती है। 120 WPM का जो कोर्स है उसमें वो अवेलेबल होगी, तो अगर आप वो लिखना चाहते हैं तो वो आप उसे आप ऑप्ट कर सकते हैं। अदरवाइज़ आप इनको अच्छे से प्रैक्टिस कीजिए, मेहनत कीजिए, सिलेक्शन आपका पक्का होगा। आपसे मुलाकात करता हूँ अगली क्लास में अगली ट्रांसक्रिप्शन के साथ। तब तक के लिए बाय बाय, टेक केयर।